a sea of samey crossovers, the Peugeot 2008 has always stood out, and that is definitely true in this new version, which we're driving in electric form and petrol form, starting with this new E2008, which has more range, more power, and more grrr. We're going to talk about whether the changes have made this car easier to live with, more comfortable, and more suitable for young families or even dog owners. And we're starting in the interior because that's where you're going to be spending all of your time. This is a top GT spec car. There are two trim levels below, the Active and the Allure. So this car gets all of the trimmings. Also, because this is electric, it comes as standard with a new gear selector. Gone is the old gear knob. And here, now, we've got a slightly fiddlier option, but it does clear up a load of space down there. You also get, as standard, wireless Android Auto and Apple Carplay for the infotainment system, which remains good, sharp, and easy to use. And you still got a nice digital instrument cluster ahead with some 3D graphics that do look impressive on this top GT car. Also, you've got a decent amount of space in this comfortable and quite sporty interior, although you haven't got the most amount of space when it comes to the glove box. In fact, it's laughably small. It's tiny. When you actually sit behind the wheel, you also want to consider what kind of seating position you want. There's a good amount of adjustability in the chair itself, and it is comfortable. But for drivers like myself, it's quite difficult to see the digital instrument cluster ahead if you set the steering wheel where you want it. In my case, a little bit higher, but I get the impression that this car was designed with smaller drivers in mind because the pedals are a little bit smaller than average, and this steering wheel is also very small. That's true for a lot of Peugeots at the moment, but it really does feel small in a slightly bigger car like this. If you're considering one of these, it's probably best to try it out first. And handily on Cinch, if you find one there, well, there is, of course, a 14-day money-back guarantee, so if you're not happy, you can always give it back. As for the passengers in the back, well, they are greeted with a surprising amount of space. In fact, I've got loads of headroom here above me and also to the side as well. Plus, I've got a good amount of knee room and my feet even fit under the seat ahead. There isn't that much in the way of creature comforts here. You've got a couple of USB-C ports down here, but no vents, so no independent climate control. Plus, because this rear bench doesn't split with the middle seat, while the middle seat itself, you can seat a passenger, it's a little bit narrow, but you can't, for example, fold it down individually or even access the boot so you can use it as a ski hat. And if you carry furry friends in the back seat and they like to stick their tongue out over the window, well, they might find it a little bit uncomfortable because this window doesn't go all the way down. So yeah, this guy is going to get a sore neck. He doesn't have a name, by the way, so if you've got any ideas, let us know in the comments. And if your passengers in the back are less likely to bark and more likely to cry, well, it's quite handy to know that the ISOFIX bars are hidden behind these zips here, nice and tidily, but when you push back on the material, you'll feel the ISOFIX bar is in easy reach because they've cut out the cushioning around it. So it's pretty easy to use and a very tidy solution. As for the back of the car, well, they've changed the rear lights here, and they've also got rid of the Peugeot badge and replaced it with the script up there. And interestingly, they've also put this bit of black plastic here, possibly to hide the camera away, but I think it looks like a bit of a rubbish moustache, don't you think? Anyway, the boot is exactly a cinch umbrella wide, so that means it's a pretty good and usable boot. And you also get underfloor storage ×2. So firstly, you've got this underfloor section here, which is pretty conventional, but then you lift up this flap and there's a little bit more storage down there as well. Now, most of that is taken up by your tyre repair kit, and there's also, I spot some paperwork as well. But there's not much space beyond that because that's where the batteries begin. Although I have a feeling that won't be the case in the petrol car. Isn't that right? Yes, you do get more space, but not masses more, because while there is a space for a spare wheel down here, in our market, we get a toolkit. So there is a bit of area, but it's not massively usable. Now, of course, you can use the underfloor storage in this electric one to hide away your cables, but it's quite hard to squeeze these cables, which are very thick and therefore quite tough, into the supplied bag. So they don't actually fit under right now. So I'm gonna have to put them here, but that does thankfully leave just about enough space for our family suitcase. Now, this is a big suitcase, but look, it fits in comfortably like that there, and of course it's easily under the parcel shelf. But if instead of suitcases you are storing a dog in the back, well, it's a little bit more snug. In fact, I mean, because this roofline curves down, of course you take off the parcel shelf, but it is pretty cramped in there for a dog. Although theoretically he does fit, whatever his name is. So it's a good usable boot, but of course there's more space in a petrol one. Now, from behind the wheel of the E2008, you really feel the polish and the way this package is so nicely put together because it rides very well. It's a very comfortable car, even over speed bumps in the town. And the powertrain delivery is smooth rather than urgent. So yeah, it's not that quick to accelerate off the line, but once you're moving, once you're rolling, this thing is plenty quick enough. It also feels nice and nimble because you've got this small steering wheel and you've got this nice commanding view of the road. I'm peering over a horizontal bonnet line, which feels very SUV-like, and I'm looking into mirrors that are tall, so they give me a good view of the road behind. And if you're reversing, it's easy to place the car with the high definition reversing camera on this GT model. The battery in this car is bigger at 54 kilowatt hours maximum. And if that means nothing to you, just know it means you've got a claimed 250-mile range. Although I have to admit, today has been very cold, so I've had the heating on, so I've not seen over 239 miles. And also, I think it's been using a little bit more energy than I would have expected. We've averaged about 3 miles per kilowatt hour, which on a mixed route is okay, but nothing spectacular. So if you're not entirely sure whether an electric car or an E2008 is for you, well, you might still want to consider a petrol 2008. Thanks to the power of editing, we can also see whether that thing's nice to drive right now. Now, right off the bat, I can tell you that this Petrol 2008 is one of the best small SUVs you can buy right now. And actually, if you want to see what our favourite small SUVs are, why not click the link above for our selection there. Now, I have to admit, when I jumped into this car after driving the electric one, I thought it was going to feel a bit sluggish, but this small engine is still really nice and punchy. We've got 130 horsepower, so it feels nippy, and yet we can also average into the high 40s and miles per gallon. So it's a fuel efficient, but also nippy motor. It makes a decent sound as well, and the automatic gearbox is nice and intelligent, meaning you don't have to think about driving this car very much. You simply put your foot down or brake, much like you do in the electric one. Now, because it weighs a little bit less, because the petrol engine is lighter than batteries, the ride is actually a little bit nicer. The electric car has that nice smooth flow over the bigger bumps, but this one then carries that on with the smaller ruts and cracks in roads, so it feels comfortable in pretty much all settings. And that extra bit of lightness means the car also feels a little bit more eager through the bends. Initially feels the same, but then it feels a little bit more sporty if you carry the speed through. And you know what? It doesn't half sound alright as well. And as for motorway and town, well, it feels identical, and that's a good thing because you've got that easy light steering, same visibility. Genuinely, this is one of the nicest small SUVs you can drive in any setting right now.
So clearly, we're big fans of the 2008 in both petrol and electric forms. If you need more space and want an interior that feels a lot more special, you might want to wait for the Peugeot E3008, which we've looked at in detail at the link on screen.